Hello again, and welcome to the video contemplation of day signature 41. This frequency corresponds to the Knight of Wands, who represents the noble role of champion. Oof, very excited about this one. I say that every day, but it's true every day.
Yeah. So the two angels that correlate to this Knight of Wands and the 41st frequency are the 19th angel of belonging, who walks the pathway of sensitivity to become the embodiment of support.
That's right.
And then we have the 41st angel of Inception that walks the pathway of anticipation to become the embodiment of the supernova.
The supernova.
Yeah.
We love this one. We've lived this one. We're very excited to share as much as we're able to cough up on the subject. I don't know about you, we haven't talked about this, but one thing I'm feeling in the lead up to this conversation is almost like a jittery excitement. It feels like we've seen so much already, even just this morning on this signature, that some part of my logical brain, my intellect is scrambling like, how do we duplicate for our viewers everything that's happened for us this morning? Obviously, we've learned that it's in our best interest to release such concerns.
Yeah.
But it's rooted in something I think really viable, which is just pure excitement to share with you what we've seen. So we're going to do our very best. So bear with us, and we're just going to kind of dive in. Beginning, I think, in this case, with the Knight of Wands. You think that's a good beginning point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we can understand about the Knight of Wands in this position is that what we're learning about is something that is so fundamental to the human experience, but it's not really talked about. Nobody really explains it to you, but it's so evident. And once you kind of live it or go through the process from end to end, then you can understand it and really, again, sort of like learn to trust what your body's telling you, the feelings that you have that sort of carry you throughout, your life experience and sort of like where it's all leading.
Okay. Well, you touch on, you may not be aware of this yet, dear viewer, but she touched on many of the things in this description that we're going to be essentially unraveling like a ball of yarn throughout the course of this conversation. Maybe you can connect that word feeling to the pathway of sensitivity and begin to understand that what's happening here is something that happens in the body of our experience. It's something that we actually encounter, not just something that we think about, which is really appropriate when we find ourselves here in the Wands. In particular, I think it's worth zooming in on the Knight itself for a moment. Historically in the tarot in particular, there's, Dave, scooch in, I think you're a little maybe off to the side there. The understanding of the Knight is almost this, at least for me, what I came to understand about the Knight is that it took on this role of almost a sacrificial lamb. And not just in the tarot, but I think historically throughout time, the idea of a knight is that the knight is in service to the kingdom. And we can clearly see that this theme of service is still pertinent. But it's coming from a place that is no longer sacrificial. It's coming from a place that has so much heart, so much to give. And the giving is not a sacrifice. It's a gift. And there's plenty to give from. This knight is equipped in a way that maybe previous ideas about the knight were not. The other thing that we're noticing here in the noble role of champion, really, really powerful connection, is that this knight is a champion of something quite specific. It's not that the knight is now going out to earn the favor of a princess or a king or a queen. The knight is now like a living, breathing, equipped, capable, ready champion, as is.
Right.
There's a word a keynote that we've connected to the knight itself, regardless of its which set of virtues it is serving. So whether it's the swords or the wands or the hearts or the diamonds, the image of the knight holds a keynote, and that keynote for us is the word triumph. The reason this is significant is because this figure is no longer setting about the long, arduous journey of proving itself to its master or its king or its kingdom. There's no sacrifice, there's no proving, there's no earning. Triumph is somehow built in So it no longer has anything to prove. It simply stands as a sentinel of life. Or in this case, we know that the set of royals that it is serving are beauty and intimacy, the king and queen of wands. So this is a champion of beauty.
Yes.
A champion of life, a champion of life's movement, a champion of that flow.
Right.
And all of the promises inherent to that flow.
Right. I think that the knight is, setting out, seeking, yearning for this sense of belonging in the court, in the royal court, or earning his place among other champions. And what we see here with this connection to the angel of belonging is that he belongs. Like, that's just already part of his story. He doesn't have to earn it.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about how this plays into traditional tarot, but one thing that's absolutely certain for us in this context of the liberated tarot is that we find the knight in the set of royals because he's a part of that family now. He's not a guardian of the family per se. He's not outside of it, protecting it. He's a part of it, and as such is actually more capable of protecting and prioritizing the needs of that family, so to speak. Of course, this is all metaphor, but it's useful to find ourselves in these metaphors. What are we choosing to be champions of, and how much of that effort is being expended as effort as opposed to a free flow of expression from our hearts? How much of it is about earning a place or attempting or desiring to belong to something rather than recognizing truly and completely and purely how wholly represented we are within the family, how much we already do belong to life, to this greater organism. We're kind of learning to slough off all of the needs to prove or validate ourselves, to justify ourselves as some meaningful part of existence.
Right.
And realizing I exist inherently as a meaningful part of existence. All of these gifts, everything that I have to offer and everything that life offers back, it's a part of this birthright. I am a noble. I am a part of this family of life, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. It's really hard to find the words for these things sometimes when it's already in there so completely. It's like, okay, how do I get that out of me and into...
no, that's exact. I think you did an amazing job just understanding that what we're trying to say is that there's no proving, because the fact that you exist means that you are an integral part of the whole. You belong. You already belong. You
already are worthy. You already have been accepted.
Yeah.
Into the royal,
the nobles.
Into the castle, yeah.
Yeah.
The triumph bit, imagine moving towards something with the clear awareness that it is already yours. Imagine holding a desire in full awareness of the promise that what you desire has already been promised to you. Imagine going to war, so to speak, knowing that you win. This is a part of what this knight carries, which is why this knight is so ready, in particular the Knight of Wands. There's so much energy, so much fire, so much dynamism, so much passion, so much readiness to kind of gear up, saddle up, and go. Because, as we've mentioned multiple times over the past few days, what risk is there? This knight is ready and able to be a champion of the kingdom, so to speak, because it knows that triumph is built in, that desire equals promise, that everything that it wishes for and that it wishes to express is already moving, and it's only a matter of time before the experience lands.
Okay. I think this is a good point to mention that if this tarot card in the Liberated Tarot were to have an image on it, it would be that of a seed underneath the soil, waiting to sort of burst through to the surface, but we're still sort of in that seed stage in this particular position.
Yeah, so there is movement, there is readiness, but all of that movement at this point can sometimes tend to be invisible. You may not even necessarily know that it's happening. You just feel an awareness that there's a movement. You feel the calling. You know that where you are is not the end and somewhere else is calling. And so there's this yearning sense, this readiness. You know it's only a matter of time before you kind of burst through the surface to express new life. But at this point, it's the feeling is very much like kind of like putting on the armor and getting everything ready to roll, and then committing yourself to that story. And so what we're able to derive that image of a seed from is the 41st angel of Inception. That's where this comes from. It's not even so much the night. Right. It's the angel that correlates to the night. And then where we're getting this emphasis on kind of heart and experience, that's very much coming from the 19 with its pathway of sensitivity. If you think about it, sensitivity isn't all that different from what we learned about in the swords. Many of these skills that we've cultivated throughout the sequence of swords are now essentially taking root into the body of our experience, into the practical application of real life. So what was once discernment is now maturing. Discernment now becomes sensitivity, and now you have the opportunity to begin unifying the mental awareness of discernment with the sensory input available when you kind of come down into the body and meet your life as a human being. Really meet life as such, not just an idea, but as an experience. Yeah,
I think one of the things that we as humans get so sort of confused by is the fact that we are born with desire. We have these desires that we are meant to follow, but it's sort of like confusing between what our brains are telling us to do and what we're feeling in our body, what we feel as desire. It's an actual sensory feeling that you become attuned to and you become aware of, and trying to understand the difference between the mental activity and what you're feeling as a desire can sort of lead us to different conclusions.
Oh, that's so very true. You have a pure initial moment of recognition, which is desire, and it's in your body, and it's physical, and it's unavoidable, and you realize, hey, there's something here.
There's something pulling me forward.
Yeah, something real, something alive, something unavoidable. It feels like a part of you. It feels like breath. It's a calling. And everyone knows what that feeling of a calling is like, even if they haven't really felt it in a long time.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
yearning or longing is sometimes what it's described as. But it's a desire. It's a desire to, have a certain experience.
We need to track back for a minute. Okay. It's really important to note at this point that for many people, especially if you're an adult, that feeling of desire that we're referring to, that feeling of yearning, feeling it all, oftentimes this has been buried. Oftentimes this has been disallowed for so long that when we're talking about the feeling of a calling and how everyone recognizes the feeling of a calling, it may be that you haven't felt that for a very long time. It may be that your experience, your social upbringing, the way that your mind works, and all of the things that have been kind of trained into your way of meeting life have firmly disallowed the feeling of desire, firmly disallowed the feeling of a genuine longing, firmly disallowed a sense of any calling other than what you think you're supposed to be doing. We didn't discuss this on our walk or on our previous talks this morning, but I think it's really significant to put a point on that. There is absolutely a whole process that unfolds in the lead up to this moment of opening to the pathway of sensitivity that does in fact require a knight-like courage. You're literally going to have to go to war, so to speak, for yourself in order to pry open the double doors of your heart, so to speak, so that light, that awareness, that ultimately that sensitivity can begin to move and begin to inform you and begin to provide the awareness of the path. So yes, all of these things are inherent. Yes, all of these things are built in from the start, but many of them have been attacked, assaulted, disallowed over time.
Right.
Our responsibility as adults is essentially to rescue that part of ourselves. Oftentimes you hear about rescuing the inner child. That's totally a knight-like process.
Yeah, I think of examples where children end up being, basically living out their parents' dreams. So they might be really into art as a kid, but their parents want them to be a lawyer. So, they follow that path because that's what they're told they should do. They're convinced of it. And they forget all about what their true desire was. So I can see how that would happen.
Oh yeah. And
Happens all the time.
And that's a very recognizable trap. It's the trap that initially held most of the knights in the traditional tarot. They were very focused on stability and security and this idea that everything needs to be like fortified. Mm-hmm. And I think what we find here in the Liberated Tarot is something much more capable, truly much more qualified to be a guardian because of an inherent flexibility, an inherent adaptability and awareness, and even, yes, sensitivity built into that. This knight is not interested in fortification. It's interested in response. What's interesting is that when we're trying to sort things out in the intellect, when we're trying to do this in our minds, even with a practiced capacity for discernment, oftentimes we can end up reacting to the sort of things that are happening around us. And when we are running around on the surface of our experience, reacting to circumstance, there's never the opportunity to kind of breathe into that fertile space of desire. Please, you're just trying to survive from one day to the next. It's like your sword is always out and your shield is always up, and you're just always kind of at war with one circumstance after another. The moment you get ahead in one area, the foot falls in another. It's just like, dang, we exhaust ourselves in this effort of reactivity. That's the old vision of the knight. What we find here, it's almost like the knight transforms. This is kind of wild, but the image of the knight with all this like metal armor and like kind of like clunky is replaced by like the samurai or the kung fu fighter. It's a completely different type of warrior that shows up like equipped to meet the moment. Now there's agility, now there's adaptability, now there's mindfulness, now there is a different way of moving.
Yeah. Definitely, I like that.
Okay, I've never seen that before. In my mind's eye, I still have the original knight, but I think what we're describing is significantly more flexible.
Yeah, and so what we sort of realize at some point along the way is that this initial desire doesn't go away, and it just keeps coming up. And so we become aware of it and sensitive to it. And when we're sort of given these little constant little hits throughout our life that, hey, the desire is still there, eventually it leads somewhere, but we don't know where it's going. So there's this sense of anticipation that builds if the desire has not, shown itself on the surface yet, but it's still in there. And it, again, this idea of if you really want to be an artist, or you really want to have your own business, or whatever that desire is, as long as it's still alive in you, it is alive, and it is leading you somewhere, and you're learning how to trust that feeling, so that when the time does come to sort of burst through the soil as that seed, and the plant like grows out into like the actual air, it knows what to do. It's been anticipating this moment, but the thing is we don't always know what to expect when we reach the surface.
We'll come back to that. Again, I think let's rewind to desire. We're using a word here, a word that, as you already mentioned, is often used and equally often misunderstood. I think it's worth stating that, first, what we're referring to as desire could also be synonymous with enjoyment.
Yes.
I mean, it can be very simple. In fact, every true desire will be rooted in basic enjoyment. This is a fundamental impulse in life. That's what we're referring to. And of course, when we're speaking on the subject of desire, we realize that we're dealing with many different layers or expressions of desire. For example, I might desire pizza for lunch. Okay, that's a very surface level desire. It's not at all what we're talking about. There's another level, a little lower, that a good example of this level, so to speak, would be our relationship to the tarot. We've always enjoyed working with the tarot, even when it wasn't quite yielding the results that we felt it could. And as many times as you or I may have released the tarot as a subject, it kept coming back, even when we thought, what, this again? My relationship to numerology was like this. Early on, my relationship to human design was like this. These things that repeat and repeat on this kind of lower level, like more fundamental level, you can feel their significance in a way that's deeper than, I like pizza.
Yeah.
That's something. But there's much, much happening even beneath that, for example, every one of us desires legitimate fulfillment. We want to take a deep breath, feel that sigh of relief, and understand that whatever it is we've been yearning for or working for or reaching for has finally been realized. We want to actually feel the like relief and pleasure in that.
Satisfaction.
The satisfaction, yeah. Beneath that even, all of us want, we were talking about beauty yesterday, all of us want to feel beautiful, to feel acceptable, to feel worthy. These are deep, deep desires. And these are the very desires that we tend to stuff, that we tend to override with our attempts or efforts to prove ourselves. And this is why this night is so very important, because it's saying we get to release all of that because the worthiness is inherent, because the beauty is inherent, because the promise is built in. If you genuinely desire something like that, it's not arbitrary, it's specific, it's on purpose, it's primal, it's a part of who you are, and it's a guaranteed contributor to your story. The very thing you most desire is descriptive of yourself. And so when we're speaking in terms of desire, think of it as desire with a capital D. This isn't small, this is large, but that largeness isn't a large thing like a Lamborghini. It's large as in deep. It's large as in a part of you, identity level, sort of large. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what we're working with here. And that's why it feels like a calling, not just like a craving. Mm-hmm. Big difference.
Yeah, it's fundamental. Mm-hmm. And it's like a need. It feels like a fundamental need.
Yeah. So first and foremost, we have this keynote of triumph telling us that whatever it is that we feel called to is supposed to be a part of our story and is coming. Mm-hmm. You know, that keynote of triumph and that sense of calling, they come together to produce promise. That's what's happening there. And so you know that this means something. And even if you feel at a distance from whatever that something is, and even if you can't see ultimately what it may be, you can feel it and you can know that that feeling is pulling you towards something. Mm-hmm. That pull, that sense of calling, is what we might otherwise refer to as destiny.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. What did you call it earlier? The golden thread of destiny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the desire is what pulls you forward on this golden thread of destiny. And it's just keeps pulling you forward throughout, your life. You're still attached to it. Mm-hmm.
The opportunity for each of us is to remain connected to it, to realize that underlying sense of calling, no matter what its direction may be, no matter how much sense it might make to you now, it's meaningful and it's seeking expression, seeking fruition. And it is going to ensure that you get the hint one way or another. If you're built to be an artist, but you're working along this trajectory of lawyer, so to speak, in our example, they seem to be completely at odds. The promise is that life is very persistent and very generous. It will not allow you to wander so far away from the destiny that it doesn't play out. It's going to continue to call you back. Now, you can continue to resist that calling indefinitely, but ultimately, I think that effort of resistance will exhaust everyone in time. Mm-hmm. And so in time, we all kind of return to that point of alignment with the thread of our own destiny. And we learn, hey, this is actually to my benefit to just surrender to this stream of awareness that is clearly pulling me forward into more than I could possibly imagine. I think I'll choose to follow that now.
Yeah.
And that's where the capacity to discern, we talked about discernment, we talked about the forgotten sense and the red and the green paths, or the path of worry versus the path of wonder. We talked about how we get to make choices in this binary fashion. Well, now all of this is going to become very, very real. And you're going to realize that mental capacity to discern is actually rooted in a physical signaling system, which is constantly communicating to you about the quality of your decisions and your actions. It's always going to say, yes, ding, 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 you're right on it. This is that golden thread of your destiny. That, in the forgotten sense, is what we would refer to as a green feeling. It feels wonderful. It feels exciting. It feels like a rush. It's enthusiasm. It's relief. It's all of these yummy feelings. Mm-hmm. And in any case where you're off over here trying to prove to your parents that you are capable of being a lawyer or are worthy of being their son or daughter, or whatever the case may be, the weight of that, the heaviness of that, the ache of that is your body, your being, life itself communicating to you through your body that this is not in any way aligned with the truth about who you are. You have no business trying to prove yourself. You are already perfect. And there's a great big story waiting for you over here. Right? Mm-hmm. And so the discernment roots itself into sensitivity, but that sensitivity is only useful if, one, you're open to the sensitivity, which again, many of us have firmly closed that like a clamp. Others of us have opened that to that sensitivity without any awareness about the discernment, without any control over properly interpreting what that sensitivity means. And so now we feel like we're swimming in feelings, and we feel like we're totally overwhelmed by this curse of sensitivity. Sensitivity is not one of these things that's a gift or a curse, or a gift and a curse. It's that our misunderstanding produces a really muddy, muddled, confusing, often uncomfortable experience. But the moment we realize what all of these feelings and emotions and inner awarenesses, all these senses are attempting to produce within us, the moment we can interpret them, we become equipped to meet life in a very, very elegant fashion. This is what I believe this night is really calling us to do. It's what the Forgotten Sense is all about inviting you into. First, delivering an awareness, delivering a system that can describe in like drawn out form, like model for you exactly how this works, and then invite you to take that awareness into your experience and develop a sensitivity that is trained, so that when you feel something, you know what it's communicating. Mm-hmm. What use is it to sit in a room full of people speaking another language? Doesn't mean anything to you. Mm-hmm. You can hear them. It sounds like noise. But the moment you can speak that language, you can participate in the narrative. You can engage. That's what's happening here. We're capable of developing an awareness, which then roots itself in experience through the body. Mm-hmm. In the Forgotten Sense, we talk about body listening and we talk about wayfinding. Mm-hmm. They go hand in hand. We need to learn how to listen into the body and interpret its signals. Once we can do that, we can begin to navigate our experience through wayfinding. We can navigate our experience in a way that is adaptive and conscious and intentional. We can start to identify which aspects of our experience are aligned with that thread of destiny. And we can start to say, yeah, I'm going this way. I choose this. Mm-hmm. Until these different pieces of the puzzle are in place, though, we find ourselves pretty well locked up in a cage of not feeling, or pretty well overwhelmed by the cacophony of sensation. Mm-hmm. When we can unify the two, we realize, oh, they work together. The one is a gift or a power, and the other is another gift, a resource. And when you combine them, you have a really powerful gift. That's what sensitivity is all about. As we use this sensitivity to align with our destiny, we realize not just that I belong over here in this place that my destiny is taking me, but I belong right here in life, right now, that I am held and supported by infinity itself to live out this particular story. And that this isn't about the triumph at the end of the line. It's about the triumph of every single step, as moment by moment I'm recognizing, realizing, tasting, experiencing, living the very fulfillment. I once thought I'd have to climb this, impossible mountain in order to finally achieve.
Yeah. We think we have to do it all ourselves, and that what we most love will not support us. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
That's right.
All that life wants is for you to live out your desires and live your destiny. So of course you have the support that you need.
Yeah, the support, amazingly enough, is contained in the deeper desires. Mm-hmm. The moment that you can reclaim for yourself the awareness that you are acceptable, you are worthy, you are beautiful, all these things that we low-key worry about, the moment we can release those worries and just relax into knowing absolutely that we're held, then that middle tier of desires begins to reveal itself in a way that is utterly unique to you. We all have the same underlying desires, but not everyone is going to be as attracted to or, inevitably drawn to the tarot as Laura was or as I was. That, for whatever reason, was specific to us. And the fact is, every single one of us, every one out of the billions of people on this earth, moving back in history and forward into the future and across all of time and dimensions, every conscious entity has their own unique complex of desires, which they may or may not be able to explain to anyone or even describe. Half the time we don't even know specifically what's happening there.
Right.
And the other half of the time when we do know, we're afraid to permit ourselves to move in this way toward that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important to point out that you might not be able to articulate what it is specifically that you're desiring. A lot of people wander around wondering what their purpose is. The point is that you are right where you're supposed to be. You're still underneath, you're still in the soil where you're kind of in the dark, but that feeling is what we're getting at here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in terms of purpose, the reason that the angels tell us that the purpose of life is enjoyment is because they know that every single conscious entity enjoys very specific things, which, if permitted, will simply guide or lead them along this course, along this trajectory of their unique destiny. Why do I enjoy playing music? Why do I enjoy crystals? Why do I enjoy custom knives? These are fairly random things, apparently. My next door neighbor doesn't care about any of those things. He's going to like whatever he likes, and he's going to derive benefit and enjoyment from whatever he does, derive that benefit from. So when we realize how completely original each of us is, we start to get the hint.
Yeah.
This opportunity today is really about becoming attuned to that, becoming sensitive to that, and really becoming your own champion, becoming a champion for those things which are that significant within you. Understanding that your attraction to your version of what is beauty is something unique to you and meaningful. What is it that you've pulled up? Is there something you'd like to share?
Well, yeah, so I would just like to mention, because we're on this topic, that the 30th angel is very much connected to this process. And since we've had a conversation with the 30th angel, I just wanted to read a quote from that conversation.
Great, I would
that
love
session. So the 30th angel of promise said that purpose is embodied through permission of desire.
Oof. Purpose is embodied through permission of desire.
Yeah.
Sink your teeth into that one. What if that were true?
Right.
I've not heard that before. I've not heard that in any of the texts I've read. I've not heard that in any of the conversations I've had or the videos that I've watched. The angels have given us something that, at least for me, feels absolutely new and absolutely permissive. So the question is, how willing, in this case, how willing am I to take that and run with it? And how far am I willing to run with it? And what might I find if I do? That's the question we've been asking. It's the question we've been living.
Yes.
And all we can tell you is that this idea that triumph is built in, this idea that promise is inherent to the desire, this idea that there is such a thing as a golden thread of destiny and that we're constantly called forward into more and more and more, this idea that we get to live out not only the best of our ideas, but we get to become surprised by what life delivers as we do. All I can tell you is that all of that is literally happening for us day after day, practically happening for us. Our hearts expand, our minds expand, our love for one another and for our home and for our life and for this world and for you, it's all expanding. Everything grows, and everything that is not equal to that growth is released.
Yeah.
And it's all done for you. Yeah. So the other side of this sensitivity is anticipation. And I think we need to just kind of, certainly if we're going to draw this to a close, we really need to spend some time talking about the Angel of Inception on the pathway of anticipation to become the embodiment of the supernova. We mentioned that the image is the seed. That's inception. Inception is the seed goes into the ground. There is now this living seed in the ground. That seed is filled with the complete awareness of its total story, whether it's aware of it or not. And of course, in this metaphor, we are that, our desires are that. And so we're under the soil the whole story is written somehow.
Yeah. I mean, we know that seed somehow contained in a tiny little seed is a whole tree.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Correct. Now, any seed, so to speak, any of us that are paying any amount of attention, who have developed discernment, developed sensitivity, what we're going to find is a clear awareness of that calling, right? And that's the anticipation. That's the pathway of anticipation. The first thing you need to know about this is that not only is the whole trajectory already mapped, not only is something in the seed fully aware of what it will ultimately become, but the whole process that is going to be required in order to enact that sequence is somehow inherently fueled by the existence of the seed itself, somehow inherent to the inception of the idea or the being is the fuel that will propel that story forward forever. So fuel is built in. What does this mean? Again, it means you get to relax. You get to surrender the need to self-motivate, to kind of goose the system. You cannot hurry this process. If you're a gardener and you plant a seed and a week passes and nothing's happening, and you dig up that seed to say, hey, what gives? You're going to damage the process that's been unfolding over the past week. And if you see a little sprout come through and you celebrate and you get excited and you think, I want it to go even further and even faster, and you start tugging on that thing, you're going to kill the plant. So we need to get hands off. We need to realize that there's an intelligence playing out here and that we are merely vessels of that intelligence, or rather, we are invited to be participants of a journey which is going to unfold one way or another, and the quality of our participation is entirely up to us. We can kick and scream and make ourselves miserable along the way, or we can become actively involved, and we can, in fact, quite magically, in doing so, accelerate the process simply by getting out of our own way. Because life knows what it's doing. When we relax and we get hands off, everything moves smoothly. That release of our ideas actually lubricates the system. It's pretty wild how that works. So the fuel is built in. Anticipation is that sense of yearning, that sense of knowing that something is happening, something is coming, and that something includes me, and that something is good. Right? That's important to state. Anticipation, true anticipation, capital A, anticipation, is never going to anticipate the worst. It has no awareness of the so-called worst. There's no downside to movement. There's only growth possible. So everything that happens for you. That's the anticipation. The anticipation is, oh, I'm so excited about this.
Yeah.
Even if I can't see the end from the start.
Yeah, and I think that's the forgotten sense, or just the understanding of the truth that, life is good. So if you feel like you're anticipating something that concerns you, that's not the thing.
Correct.
What we're talking about is an anticipation of something amazing.
Yes. And to put an even finer point on this, thank you, by the way, for bearing with us. There's so much here, I hope that the sequence we're sharing it in is logical enough that our listeners can follow along, but we have to trust that part to life.
Yes.
So the finer point that I'd like to put on this is that anticipation is not for any particular thing. Right. You're not anticipating something that you can see. You're anticipating something that you can feel. And that difference is quite challenging, I think, for the intellect. When the mind is left alone to sort this stuff out, or made responsible for sorting this stuff out, it scrambles. It gets really lost really fast. Because it can't see anything. It's under the soil, and it doesn't know about the story. It doesn't know about the intelligence that's inherent to this whole thing. It can't see the end from the start. So in the soil, it generally becomes afraid. It's real dark. Things are happening, but I don't know what they are, and I don't know if I like them. And, at some point along the way, that shell's going to have to crack and break, and that feels absolutely terrifying and totally inappropriate. And so the mind, if left to its own devices, is going to play out any number of things which are unhelpful. Yeah. One of those things is saying, okay, I think if I run this math, I can come up with a result that's probably correct. So based on what I am feeling, based on what I am noticing, I think it's probable that I'm a daisy.
Yeah.
I think I'm a daisy. Maybe that's what's happening. That's pretty cool. I like that. I'm going to anticipate bursting out of this soil and becoming a beautiful daisy. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Even well-intended.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be a bad story. Except what life knows is that, you want to deliver the punchline here?
You're not a daisy at all.
No.
You're actually a giant sequoia tree.
Yeah. You're a majestic
You're
being.
thinking way too small there.
Yep, you're thinking too small. And I promise you that in any case where your mind kind of weaves itself into the natural anticipation in an effort to draw a trajectory, the trajectory it draws will be smaller than the story that's actually playing out.
Mm-hmm.
You, myself, none of us are just daisies. We're not something small. We're not even something that beautiful. I mean, I told you what I mean is that we're far more beautiful. We're far larger. When we were on the walk earlier, we were talking about this. I told you that I could imagine, life, if we were to personify life, just kind of like sitting back like this, crossing its arms and being like, wow, this is cool.
Mm-hmm. Wait till they find out.
Yeah. If Timothy thinks that being a daisy is cool, like if he's happy with that, oh my goodness, just wait till he finds out.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till he finds out that, well, that flower doesn't sprout, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because you've got a long way to go and a long way to grow. And what actually sprouts is going to be something so much more magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
That's the surprise.
Yeah.
Yes, this is metaphor, but all I can feel in my body, even as I'm describing this, and the chills that are kind of racing through, is like, it's not a metaphor.
It's really close to the truth.
Yeah. If anything, it's smaller than the truth. Yeah. And yes, quite literal in terms of its scale.
Yeah.
For the difference between a beautiful daisy and a beautiful, ancient, magnificent, even eternal sequoia, right? So it behooves us to get our hands off
mm-hmm.
and to let this story play out. It does require trust, but it's worth asking if the trust you've placed in your own ability to kind of figure all this out has yielded any beneficial result. If it's yielded any results really outside of worry, concern, anxiety, a sense of responsibility that is utterly crippling and ultimately totally ineffective, what has it really yielded? If we are willing to trust ourselves into like a larger set of hands, more capable intelligence, a greater story, I know, let's just be clear. I absolutely know that what we'll find is that we are in fact supported, and that in being supported, we find that we belong. Mm-hmm. We become sensitive now to everything that is moving in our life. We recognize that every little detail of our experience is an indicator of, an evidence of this underlying support. And the moment we allow ourselves to relax a little bit, we're shown many, many, many more reasons to keep relaxing deeper and deeper and deeper, keep relaxing more and more and more, so we can open more and allow more of that life force to just funnel through us. And then we become expressions of support, because a daisy can support a certain sort of community, but a redwood is going to support a very much larger community, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to lean into the support that life is, so that we can become a contributing part of that support in the larger life. We don't get to do that if we're trying to figure it out, if we're drafting these tiny little stories and then under the best of intentions, setting about to enact them, working really hard just to prove that, yes, we can in fact pull this off. You can pull anything off, but what's better is to relax and allow life to pull it off through you, so that not only life can be benefited, but you can be surprised along the way. That's what's much better. That's what's more responsible. That's what's more appropriate. And that's what we're called to do. Mm-hmm. When this happens, the moment you finally catch on to the fact that, hey, maybe like half a mile back there when I was growing up at this high, when I realized I'm not a daisy, like that moment when you truly like get it, like, oh, wait a second. Maybe I wasn't meant to be a psychologist. Maybe I wasn't meant to be a writer. Maybe I wasn't meant to be a lawyer. Maybe this great, big, much more interesting and exciting, much more aligned, much more personal thing is actually what was happening. The moment this happens, you arrive at the supernova. Mm-hmm. That's the supernova. Yeah. When it lands, when you realize, oh, I'm bigger than I thought. Mm-hmm. Oh, the thing is happening and the thing is totally different than what I thought it was, but totally exactly what I felt it was.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it all along. That's what you say. And that awareness lands and massive explosion, not only of your own awareness, but of your own impact. That's what a supernova does. It creates a new force field in life. That force field is you,
mm-hmm.
if permitted.
Right. And really, you will find that everything along the way contributed to that blossoming.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another it does, but the point is to never succumb to any sort of notion of failure, because that's not what's really happening at all. You're just waiting for your supernova moment.
So I think that's really significant, because I know your story and I know my story. We've lived a lot of life in a lot of different directions as a result of this sense of anticipation, as a result of this underlying knowing that there was some greater story, some greater purpose, something, some greater connection inherent to the life that we were here to live. Something about that anticipation almost, I don't know if it's going to be true for everyone, but I know for myself, it's like it forced me to go looking for it, to like find it. It was like life was this funnel filled with infinite possibilities, and I had to kind of like sort through them, try some of them on for size in order to see what didn't fit until I could arrive at this moment of awareness. There were many things that I did, many skills that I cultivated, many professional directions that I explored before finally realizing that none of those were the thing.
Right. I think some people are conscious of their seeking, and some people are, not seeking. It's just a happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess it's also very possible to be kind of chugging along in a particular direction, and then life is like, okay, now it's time for you to realize that we're going this direction. Mm-hmm. There are any number of ways this can play out, but I think the main point of yours that I would like to kind of highlight, if I could, is there is no failure. There's no way to screw this up. If you're open to it, and if you're willing to allow that larger story to play out for you in your own life, you're going to witness that unfolding. And even if you're not, it's only a matter of time until you are, because life is that generous. It gets to be that good, and you are that deserving. That's why. So we are not punished by life. We're not pushed around, but we are perpetually invited to more. And the more open we are willing to become, the more of that we're able to receive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Anything else?
There are kind of little metaphors that we talked about that I'm sure would be of benefit, but it's just a lot of words. Mm-hmm. I think it would be wise to call this complete for the day.
Yeah.
And to trust that whatever roots are meant to establish themselves within you, whatever understanding is supposed to be yours, will be. And that even perhaps beneath and beyond the words that we're able to share, the intention and even the images and the awareness that we've arrived at on this subject might still come across in this video. I mean, that's a trusting of its own.
Yeah.
But it's also anticipation. It's a knowing that every one of you gets everything you need, and that we are somehow contributing to that. We get to be a part of that. That's humbling. So rather than kind of like try to make that happen in any way, I feel really solid about inviting each of you to enjoy your Frequency 41 day. We didn't mention this, but it's a personal vortex day for me. 41 is my life path number, or my life path frequency. So today has already been just like really, really profound. Again, if there's a reason that I'm fumbling over my words, it's because there are so many words, so many ideas, and such a an urgency, an excited urgency to deliver it. But I think we all get to just go live in that now. Just go do that thing now. And that's very Knight of Wands. So if you feel good, then so do I.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here with us. We're really excited about tomorrow. Every day is a new surprise, but we'll look forward to seeing you then. And thanks again. Right. Goodbye for now.